Hello everyone. Hi, welcome to Leisrealtalk. I was just reading comments and I saw someone said that he is a redneck from Los Angeles. Well, welcome. You know that Lei aspires to be a redneck. All right, welcome to Leisrealtalk. Well, we're at the end of August. Believe it or not, the summer is almost behind us. And I hope everyone has had a great summer. Yes? Okay. So for the month of August, all eyes have been on the CCP's secret Beidaihe meetings and on the fate of Xi Jinping's power. Will he continue to rule after the fourth party plenum? Or will he be forced into some kind of partial retirement? Speculation has been running wild. After showing up at the Great Hall of the People on July 25th to receive credentials from 16 newly arrived ambassadors, Xi Jinping disappeared from the public view for more than 20 days. In that time, his Minister of International Liaison Department, Liu Jianchao, here we go. There we go. Is rumored to be detained for investigation. Then came a bizarre story, a $1 million car crash in Sydney, Australia, involving a 23-year-old woman allegedly linked to the Xi family. Rumors swirled that Xi himself had been admitted to the 301 military hospital and that 3 top medical experts from Shanghai were flown into Beijing to see him. Then, guess what? On August the 20th, yesterday, Xi Jinping suddenly reappeared, making what state media hyped as a grand comeback. Well, I mean, they didn't really say that, but the way they promoted his appearance in Tibet is suggesting that it's a grand comeback. So he showed up in Tibet with a massive entourage, as if he's saying, I'm back. So let me see, do I have a picture of him? Oh, there he is. In Lhasa, in the square where they held the celebration, there was a giant portrait of Xi Jinping erected in the main square. And state media glorified him this time with the title 领袖, or Supreme Leader. And even the PLA Daily resumed calling him 核心, the core. The message was clear. The regime wanted to show Xi's grip on power and to show that it was unshakable. Meanwhile, Beijing itself has gone into a kind of semi-lockdown in preparation for the upcoming military parade on September 3rd, which is the parade to commemorate the victory in World War II. The PLA spokesperson has confirmed that Xi Jinping will inspect the troops that day. But the level of tension surrounding the preparations is so unusual that many are asking, is this really about a parade? Or could it be a disguised military showdown led by Xi's rival, General Zhang Youxia? So these developments may all be tied to a temporary deal Xi Jinping struck with his rivals at Beidaihe. Let's break this down. I'll first tell you about the Beidaihe Consensus, then Xi Jinping's Tibet trip. Last but not least, General Zhang's parade preparation, which is anything but unusual. So first things first, let me first tell you about what Mr. Wu, where's Mr. Wu? Oh, here's the portrait in Tibet, in Lhasa. There we go. The Supreme Leader is back. Okay, so here's Mr. Wu, one of the dissidents living in the US. And so on August the 15th, he posted what he called the four-point consensus of the Beidaihe meeting. So these are the agreement or temporary agreement that Xi Jinping had reached with his rivals. Or this is the temporary agreement that all factions have reached. So there are 4 points. The first one is to maintain the stability of the party's central leadership. Xi Jinping will remain in his post and continue to play the role of the top leader. State propaganda should stay consistent about his status, but excessive personal worship will no longer be allowed. Point number 2, Xi Jinping will not be permitted to serve in another term. Number 3, party, government, and military powers will be relatively separated. Number 4, the party's coordinating bodies will oversee preparations for the 4th plenum and begin laying the groundwork for the 21st Party Congress in 2027. So to me, this consensus looks like a deadlock. It basically says Xi will step down eventually in 2027 at the 21st Party Congress. But until then, no one knows what to do with him. So for now, we'll keep him in place until figuring out the next move. That explains why state media suddenly revived the Xi Jinping core, the core title, right? The 核心. And it also explains why PLA Daily fell in line and why Xi Jinping needed such a dramatic display in Tibet. So let me talk about his trip to Tibet. Well, officially, his visit was to attend the 60th anniversary of the Tibet Autonomous Region, or the establishment of the Autonomous Region of Tibet. It was established in 1965, 6 years after the 14th Dalai Lama fled into exile in India following the failed 1959 uprising. But here's what's odd about the trip. I have summarized, I think, 7 points. First of all, he didn't need to go at all. Xi Jinping didn't have to go. The 60th anniversary, which is this year, isn't as significant as the 50th. In fact, back in 2015, 10 years ago, Xi Jinping didn't attend the 50th anniversary. He sent Politburo Standing Committee member Yu Zhenshen instead. At the time, Yu's rank was about the same as Wang Huning's rank today. This time, Xi Jinping went in person, likely because he desperately needed a high-profile event to show he's still in command. Or, as some people believe, that he desperately needed divine protections, and so he visited the holy place in Lhasa, the holy place of Tibetan Tantrism. So some people believe that he needs some spiritual guidance in Tibet. All right, so that's point number 1, why I believe it's unusual, right? He didn't have to go, but he went. Number 2, he brought an unusually large entourage. 2 standing committee members joined him, Wang Huning. This was the event. So he brought Wang Huning, the head of the CPPCC, and also Cai Qi, his right-hand man, and the chief the chief in charge, his right-hand man in charge of party affairs. And alongside them were Li Ganjie. Let me see where Chris has helped me with pictures. Oh, here's Cai Qi and Wang Huning. So here you have Li Ganjie, who is the minister of United Front, head of the United Front work. He Lifeng, vice premier in charge of the economy. Zhang Youxia, another vice premier. And then Wang Xiaohong, the minister of public security. There's a vice chairman of the National People's Congress, who is a Tibetan, Losang Gemkang. And then Hu Chunhua, vice chairman of the CPPCC. And then Zhang Shenming, Central Military Commission member in charge of military discipline and anti-corruption. Now, the strangest part is Hu Chunhua, because as you all know now, that he is in the anti-Xi camp, and he's one of the names floated as a possible successor to Xi Jinping. And Xi has worked so hard to sideline Hu Zhenhua. So it's highly unlikely that Xi Jinping invited Hu to join him on this trip. And also, Hu Zhenhua wasn't needed for this trip because his boss, CPPCC chairman Wang Huning, was already on the trip. Normally, if the chairman goes, the vice chairman stays behind. The fact that Hu went anyway shows that the reformist faction or the camp insisted on sending Hu, just as checks and balances, and Xi Jinping had no choice but to accept it. Okay, so that's point number 2. Now, point number 3, Xi Jinping wasn't even the head of his entourage. State media reported that Wang Huning and not Xi Jinping was listed as head of the delegation from Beijing. This is highly unusual. By CCP's own protocol, the highest ranking official always leads the delegation. Number 4, Xi Jinping left Tibet early. Not only was he not the head of the delegation, but he also cut his visit short. He stayed in Lhasa for less than 24 hours. Compare that to his last visit in 2021, when he stayed for 3 days. This time, this is very short. He arrived on the 20th and then left on the 21st. It's not even 24 hours. Even stranger, the officials who traveled with him, his entourage, the people that I just showed you on previous slides, they didn't return to Beijing with him. They simply went to the Lhasa airport to see him off and then stayed behind to finish their business. Isn't that unusual? And then there's a missing man on this trip. I think you probably can guess that. Yes, his vice chairman, Zhang Youxia. Now, despite the large entourage, Vice Chairman of Central Military Commission Zhang Youxia was nowhere to be seen. In fact, Xi Jinping and Zhang Youxia haven't appeared together for quite some time now. And this Tibet trip was Xi's 5th domestic visit of 2025, but the first time he inspected local troops. In the previous 4 visits, he broke his tradition of always visiting local troops. And that actually was one of the reasons why people say that he has lost power, or he has lost control over the military, because he stopped visiting local troops. Now in Tibet, he went. But in all this time, usually, or I shouldn't say usually, it's almost the case when the CMC chairman inspects troops, his vice chairman should always accompany him. But Zhang Youxia wasn't there. Some might argue that, well, maybe Zhang Youxia was busy preparing for the September 3rd parade. If so, the next in line, General Liu Zhengli, the CMC's chief of staff, should go in his place, right? But he didn't go either. Liu didn't go either. Instead, the man sent was Zhang Shenming, the CMC member in charge of discipline and anti-corruption. Now, Zhang Youxia isn't, I'm sorry, not Zhang Shenming. This Zhang isn't a field commander. He's a disciplinary officer. By tradition, someone in his capacity doesn't accompany the top commander to inspect troops, because it's really sending the wrong message. So having him sat next to Xi Jinping, let me see, in this photo, do I have the photo? Oh yeah, here's the photo. Let me make this bigger. So sitting to Xi Jinping's left is Zhang Shenming. Yeah, so that's Zhang Shenming. So yeah, he sat right next to the left of Xi Jinping, right? So this sends a very awkward message. Was he there to keep an eye on Xi Jinping? Why did an officer in charge of discipline and anti-corruption go on, inspect the troops, with Xi Jinping. It's just very odd. Now, another absence is, this is very odd, is that when Xi Jinping met with the Xinjiang military district officers, its commander, Lieutenant General Wang Kai, here we go. He was absent, okay? And then the man sitting, people say the man sitting next to him, next to Xi Jinping on his right, was his political commissar. So here's the weird part. Now, why would the commander of the Xinjiang military district absent when Xi Jinping is visiting, right? And that's just very odd. So here's what people, this is what people believe has happened. Wang Kai is closely associated with Zhang Youxia. He built his career in the 13th and the 14th Group armies, both considered Zhang Youxia's strongholds. Now, remember, I told you about a week ago that General Liu Yuan recently toured Sichuan and Yunnan to rally support within the PLA. Well, the 13th Group Army is based in Sichuan, in Chengdu, Sichuan, and the 14th is in Kunming, Yunnan. So Wang Kai and Zhang Youxia both held the title of commander of the 13th Group Army. Of course, they were 8 years apart. Their ties to the 13th Army make them close. His absence from Xi Jinping's reception, alongside the absence of Zhang Youxia and Liu Zhengli, all point in the same direction. It's a message from Zhang Youxia, which is that Xi Jinping no longer commands the real muscle of the PLA. His activities now are mostly symbolic. And Wang Kai's absence was almost certainly ordered by Zhang Youxia himself. And point number 7, Xi Jinping didn't look healthy. Footage from Tibet showed him walking slowly and sometimes even wobbly. Hold on, let me play you the video. Let me add to. Yeah, here's him, a collage of video showing him walking in.
习近平向大家挥手致意，不时同代表亲切交流。习近平同大家合影留。
And he looked very sad. I mean, he just, it wasn't enthusiastic at all.
援藏干部代表。
He met with different groups. He looked very, he wasn't enthusiastic, as you could tell.
习近平亲切接见了自治区，接见了政法干警代表。习近平亲切接见了宗教界。 李干杰、何立峰、张国清、王晓红、芭芭拉·格列朗杰和张生民，在西藏工作过的老同志，中央和国家机关有关部门，习近平。
Okay, now you see the footage when he when he inspected the Xinjiang military district officers, and he looked very, very unhappy, and he moved extremely slow in this clip. Take a look.
亲切接见了驻拉萨部队上校以上领导干部和部分中央和中央军委，向驻西藏部队全体官兵致以诚挚问候。习近平同大家合影。
Okay, so I think the last clip where you see him walk. I mean, he walked so slowly. I mean, anyway, a medical expert actually said that Lhasa sits on the high altitude Tibetan plateau, and people with heart conditions or poor health are not advised to travel there. Now, Xi Jinping has cardiovascular condition. A medical expert suggested that he must have undergone physical exams or tests at the 301 military hospital before the trip. And perhaps the 3 doctors flowing from Shanghai were likely part of the team assessing whether he was fit to go or not. So that's what people believe, because going to Lhasa, the high altitude, a lot of people get sick because they're not used to the high altitude. So taken together, these signs suggest Xi Jinping's trip to Tibet was more about political theater than leadership. He was sent there to project unity and to reaffirm his status as party leader, but it came at the risk of his health because he didn't look too happy. And also that is why he left within 24 hours, leaving his entourage behind to carry out the actual duties, because his health could not afford to stay, could not let him stay there for any longer. And meanwhile, Zhang Youxia and the military deliberately distanced themselves. They sent only the lowest ranking CMC member and exclude the Xinjiang commander from Xi's reception. The message couldn't be clearer. Xi Jinping no longer commands the army. Now let's talk about General Zhang and the parade preparation in Beijing, because it looks nothing like, it doesn't look normal at all. I mean, in fact, Beijing, the capital city, has been anything but normal lately. After the first rehearsal on August the 9th, the second one was staged on August the 16th, running from 5:30 p.m. all the way till 3:30 the next morning, with some 40,000 personnel involved. And then the second drill covered an even wider area, disrupting daily life on a massive scale. Shops closed early, soldiers guarded intersections and overpasses, and residents filmed a long convoy of tanks and armored vehicles rumbling into the city day and night. And one video went viral. Let me play you the video. I think it's this one. This video shows rows of tanks were blocked at an intersection by buses parked across the road. So people are saying, was it just poor planning, or was it intentional? Some suggest this bizarre scene reflected deep divisions at the very top. Neither side wanted a firefight. Hold on, let me play this again. They don't want to have an open fight on the streets. So buses may have been used as a last-ditch effort to stop the tanks from advancing. The fact that someone dared to block the army speaks volumes. There must be real disagreements or even open confrontation inside the system. Although not everyone believes that this was intentional. Some people believe this could be the result of a poorly run drill. It's just poor planning. So the views are divided. Some believe it's just poor planning. Some people believe it's deliberate. But this year's parade preparation are unlike anything in the past. No previous parade involved live ammunition inside the capital. Absolute not. But this time, reports say Zhongshan Park, right outside the Forbidden City, has been stocked with weapons and armor. And military, hold on, let me see. Yeah, so military personnel or military camps have sprung up in downtown Beijing and in these parks. So here's a picture of people taken from a park where they show these military men. They were stationed. They camped out in the parks. And they've seen tanks and armored vehicles parked across the city. And in earlier years, now these defenses were always staged on the outskirts. They're not in the city. Now the sight of live weapons in the very heart of the capital has left residents asking, is this really parade preparation or a soft coup disguised as one? And you probably remember that I told you the unit deployed in Beijing is the 82nd Group Army, formerly the Elite 38th Army. And its presence, the presence of the 82nd Army around the capital has fueled intense speculation because this army has always been a trump card in CCP power struggles. Based in Baoding, it belongs to the Central Theater Command, the strongest of China's 5 theaters. Today, the 82nd Army numbers about 86,000 troops. And its predecessor, it used to be the 38th Army. The 38th Army has a history of stepping into political crisis. So let me just give you a few examples of how this elite army got involved in political crisis or political struggles. So in 1971, during the famous September 13th incident when Vice Chairman of CMC Lin Biao tried to flee to Soviet Union, Mao Zedong ordered the 38th Army to move north of Beijing and block the airports. And Lin's plane eventually crashed in Mongolia, quite possibly brought down by a missile. And in 1989, the 38th was one of the units sent to enforce martial law in Beijing, but its commander, General Xi Jinping, refused to obey the order. And for that act of defiance, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And he is, I'm proud to tell you that he is incidentally a distant relative of mine. In 2012, during the standoff between Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin, Hu's camp deployed the 38th Army into Beijing to confront Jiang Zemin's ally, Zhou Yongkang. And in 2015, Zhang Youxia helped Xi Jinping by moving the 38th Army into Zhongnanhai, disarming the Central Security Bureau and removing its chief, Cao Qing, replacing him with men loyal to Xi Jinping. So yes, the 38th has always been at the center of CCP infighting. And today, its successor, the 82nd, carries the same weight, and they are everywhere in Beijing. And that makes people worry. So what's interesting, on August the 16th, the PLA Daily ran a remarkable article about this 82nd Army. And it was titled, "An 82nd Group Army Brigade Rebuilds the Prestige of Political Cadres." So the language was striking. It praises a beautiful turnaround and declared that telling the truth and reporting real situations is not only a party requirement, but essential to winning battles. Now think about that. Under Xi, absolute loyalty has meant falsified reports and doctored information. So telling the truth, reporting the facts is not Xi Jinping language. It's reform era language. Even more telling, the article never once mentioned Xi Jinping, Xi Jinping thoughts, or Xi Jinping's leadership. Instead, it closed with a praise for collective leadership and democratic centralism, which are hallmarks of the reformist group. So it reads something like this. It reads something like this. It says, when democratic centralism becomes the golden key to building consensus and solving problems, when telling the truth and reporting facts becomes the hard standard for building combat power, the prestige of political cadres will be rebuilt step by step. In other words, rather than deny rumors about 80 seconds movements in the capital city, the PLA Daily doubled down. It sent a signal. The focus is on collective leadership and not Xi Jinping. At this point, it seems clear that the Central Theater Command is in Zhang Youxia's hands. And this bold article about the 82nd Army was no accident. It was a declaration. In this struggle, the guiding principles are party discipline, the Central Committee, and collective leadership, not Xi Jinping. So the reports of the 82nd's unusual deployment or unusual deployments were no baseless rumor. With brigades stationed inside Beijing and near Zhongnanhai, the message is unmistakable. Xi Jinping may still act like he's in charge, but Zhang Youxia is preparing his own counterattack. So in short, Xi Jinping's Tibet trip, the Beidaihe Consensus, and the tense parade preparations all reveal one thing, which is that the CCP leadership is locked in stalemate. They want Xi to keep playing the role of leader to buy themselves time. Meanwhile, Zhang Youxia is using the parade to tighten his grip on Beijing. Xi may insist on inspecting the troops, but his rivals are using the moment to show where real power lies. So on September the 3rd, we will see a parade, but underneath this spectacle looms a dangerous test of power, right? But in my opinion, the biggest wild card of all isn't some soldier firing a shot. I don't think that will happen. But I think the biggest wild card of all is Xi Jinping's health. In the end, his health may decide not just his fate, but the party's fate as well. All right, so that's all I have. Oh, but I like to mention that if you've enjoyed my video on the moon, you should enjoy the sequel to that. I think Chris made the best video or edited the best video he has ever done, and it's released tonight. I think it has been released. It's based on a fascinating story that I read about the history of the moon. And it's like it's a science fiction epic. So the story is just fascinating. So I hope you will enjoy that. Yeah, it's so Chris, if you could paste the link to help people find it, that would be great. So that's all. That's all. Let me see. Okay. All right. Okay, let me first address the people who have given me super stickers. I think I saw a few flying by. All right, let's see. Oh, here's one. For Global, as a Tibetan and from Lhasa, this is truly sad. This forced festivities to welcome the oppressor in front of the Patala, which is the Dalai Lama's home. It is, yeah. It shouldn't be a celebration. It's just it's just so ironic. Yeah. It's very sad. I agree with you. I agree with you entirely. Well, thank you very much for the support. Okay. Moving on. Let's see. Okay, well, Chris, if you could share the link of the Looking Glass video. Okay, let's see. All right, Let's see. Have I reached the bottom? If you have questions for me, put my name in front so I know it's addressed to me. Wise Downer. Well, thank you, Wes. Sorry, Wes. Thank you, Wes. Okay. Okay, here's a question from someone said, Xi Jinping will retire and start a YouTube channel. All right, I doubt it. Okay, seek the truth. Is it true that Wang Huning has been removed from power? No, not yet. I know and he will go down with Xi Jinping. And when Xi Jinping goes down, he will. But as long as Xi Jinping is still kept there, I think he will. They need him. They need him around Xi Jinping. So it looks like there's no change. So it looks like it's status quo. Yeah. So his fate is tied with that of Xi Jinping. What someone asked me, what do I think of the meeting between Wang and Modi? Best friends now? I think nowadays politics or geopolitics have really just, I mean, politicians are all actors now. They should earn Academy Awards for their performance. It's all political theater now, right? And it's like, yeah, I think they just, put out an act for us to believe what they want us to believe. I don't believe China and India are best friends. No. Someone asked me, do you think you're too negative about China? Do you know whoever interviewed whoever? Oh, this Jin Keyu. Jin Keyu, you know who she is? Her father is a CCP official. People like Jin Keyu, they are well educated in the West. They have all the academic credentials. I mean, she has what, PhD in economics. So there's a whole class of quote unquote experts like them. And I think there are more of them now. So these are the second or the third generations of CCP elders who are sent to the West, well educated in the West. And then they are working in various think tanks or education institutions, or even banks, right? They hold these they appear as experts, but their whole goal is to defend the CCP because their family's prestige is tied to the longevity of the regime. So these very Western looking, well-educated, quote unquote experts, I think they're doing great harm than any service. So I highly, I'm sorry, I have to say this. I mean, there's nothing personal against her, but I'm just saying, if you look at their background, who their parents are, who their parents' parents are, who their grandparents are, I mean, they are the privileged class of people in China. Of course, they're going to defend their privilege. They're not speaking for the hundreds of millions of Chinese who are struggling in China. So it's very sad, but the West allowed them to come here. We allow them to come here. We gave them an education. We probably even gave them a scholarship. Like Xi Jinping's daughter got a full scholarship from Harvard. We educate them, but do we change their mind? No. Instead, their narratives are precisely CCP's narratives, but they learn how to use the Western approach to convince us. So they talk like a Westerner. They appear very Westernized. So what have we done? And she's not alone. If you look at all these organizations, if you look at it, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, I mean, all these major media outlets, they employ these Chinese, ethnic Chinese. But if you really do research on the background of these Chinese, where their parents come from, who their grandparents are, they're not ordinary Chinese. I mean, I shouldn't say not all of them, but very, very few of them are ordinary Chinese with no background at all. Otherwise, they would not have the chance to come to the U.S. and be well educated, or even hold a job in organizations like the New York Times. Almost all of them have ties to the CCP or someone in the CCP. So what have we done? They're everywhere in the society now. So that's the harm. And it's very sad. It's very sad, to hear these people, because they're very selfish. They're not really speaking for the interests of the Chinese people in general. They're only speaking for their class of people. I'm sorry, but this is my honest opinion. It's not a personal thing, but it's generally a problem that I'm concerned with. All right. All right. Norbert Claus. What does it take to change how Chinese people think or how they're educated? At this point, it's an uphill battle. It's so difficult. I would say probably the better the better education they received, the worse the problem they have, because they're more. I found that the ordinary, the truly ordinary, average people from small towns and cities appear normal, have normal thinking like everyone else around the world. But the so-called CCP elite, they are the most selfish and ruthless people. And so you ask me how to change their, I think you have to remove their privilege. Once they don't have the privilege, they will learn their lesson. It's very difficult because, I mean, all day long, I see all these heartbreaking stories taking place in Chinese society. And some of the things that are happening among people is unthinkable. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it. Okay, here's a question. Has Yuan Hongbin weighed in what has been going on? What's his view? Okay, I have to tell you this situation. In the overseas Chinese dissident communities, there are quite a number of people who are very well connected with China. And these people are very good. They give up a lot of things to be able to do what they do, because they are courageous, they speak up. But what I have found is they all have their own opinion, and they're not easily convinced to change their view. Some of them adamantly believe that Xi Jinping is still in power, while others believe that he's not. And the both camp are very strong. And some believe that Xi Jinping will attack Taiwan, like the war is imminent. And while others believe that there's no way he will not attack Taiwan, because he's a very timid individual. He doesn't have the courage to start a war. And I found that over the years, of the 4 years that I've been doing this, their view has not changed. And after a while, I realized whatever they say, it's almost like to defend their viewpoint. And to me, that's unnecessary. Like, I said that China has 1 billion people missing, but I have no problem if someone said that that's not true. To me, that's actually a better thing, because if China has more people, I would rather be wrong than see China actually having lost so many lives, because having more lives is more important than proving that I'm wrong, I'm right. So I have no problem to actually find out that I was wrong, that China actually had more people. If one day we find out China does have 1 billion people, I mean, I'll be happy, because at least we lost, you know, we lost fewer lives, right? So I think to do our job well, you cannot be attached to your view one way or the other. If someday I discover that Xi Jinping is fully in control, I'll tell you that, because I'm not attached to my narratives. Because my job is to really tell you, to assess the situation and tell you what's really happening. So for me to stubbornly hold on to my view that this is true, that I was right from the beginning, I think is counterproductive. I could lose my credibility that way. So I found some of these heavyweight dissidents are a little bit like that. They want to prove their point. Um, yeah, but that doesn't mean that the things that they share, or the tips that the information that they got from the inside, from their sources, are not credible or not valid. But sometimes when you receive information, it's how you interpret them, right? How you interpret it. So yeah, so that's what I try to view as many people's opinions as possible, and then come up with my assessment. And I think the situation in China or in Zhongnanhai is changing so fast. The dynamics could swing in one way or the other, and anything is possible. Uh, so, so I don't want to stick to my version of the story and not change, because if I do that, then I'm not being factual. I'm not being objective. So when you ask me how I feel about Professor Yuan's opinion, he is one of those who adamantly believe that Xi Jinping uh, is in control and will start a war against Taiwan imminently. So that's his view. Yeah. China Uncensored, another China watcher, doesn't seem to think Xi Jinping's power is compromised. What do you think? Well, I mean, it's normal, but you have to give your justifications. Like um, I try to give you my justifications of why I think why I believe what I believe, right? Um, but I'm okay with Xi Jinping still in power. You know, some people, they find it to be painful to admit that Xi Jinping is still in power. And I think that's also wrong, because our job is not pass our personal feeling to our viewers. Our job is to tell you exactly what might be happening, right? Even though nobody knows for sure what's happening, because it's such a black box operation. Um, so as long as they could provide the justifications and the reasoning, I think it's great. It's great to hear different opinions. I think wise people are open to different opinions. So I always find it interesting to watch programs or read articles from people who believe that Xi Jinping is still in power. I want to see what they say. But so far, I think he lost control over the military, but he still has some political power, because the whole regime needs him in that place. And that gives him political clout. He still has to act. Um, so he hasn't lost power entirely. That's my view. Okay. All right. So because it's because for anyone to argue that Xi's power is not affected, then there's just so many incidents that's hard to explain. There's no way that Xi Jinping is in full control while losing so many of his lieutenants. How could you explain that? There's no way. Either he's crazy or he has lost some power. There's no way you could explain that Xi Jinping is fully in control and yet just wants to get rid of everyone he promoted. That doesn't jive. Okay, all right. That's my long rant on that. Somebody said, do you feel bad for Xi? I do feel bad for him. But he created this predicament himself. When he first came to power, I mean, people respected him. People generally believed that he was going to make some positive changes for China. And his initial anti-corruption campaign was well received because China needed that. Under Jiang Zemin, it was very corrupt. But then he was faced with a tough decision whether he wanted to steer China to the right or to the left. To the right means he has to embrace some level of political reforms, but he didn't like the capitalists. He didn't really understand capitalism. See, here's the handicap. He didn't understand he didn't know what he didn't know. And no one actually was patient enough or kind enough to really kind of mentor him. Of course, it's difficult to mentor a CCP leader. They're not coachable. But if someone really had the courage and the compassion and the ability and the determination to tell him the right thing to do without fearing of losing his life, he might have listened, but everybody just said, okay, well, you're the boss, do whatever you want. So he never quite understood capitalism or the market economy. So he thought that he saw the many downsides of capital, the problem in American society and, the quote unquote chaos in a market economy. He didn't understand what those phenomena really mean. So he went to the left because he only knows how the leftist ideology works. He grew up with it. And people of his generation all had this problem. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's all. Here's a question. Marest666. Do you know why Beijing was called Peking or Beiping? And so with Guangzhou from Canton, but Shanghai remained unchanged. I think that the phonetics, right? Because it's based on pinyin. Because the pinyin for Shanghai is the same. Beiping was what's the phonetic system that they used before the CCP came over? There was a phonetic system called what do you call that? Guys, what is it called? I forgot. But there was a phonetic system that they used to pronounce Chinese words, used by the Republic of China, the nationalists before the CCP came, and that's how Beiping, Canton. And so a canton, I think, may even be a name given by its Western merchants. But when the CCP came over, they changed names. Communists and socialists do not want you to carry on your tradition. So the first thing they do when they take over is change names, right? So they changed all the names of the streets in Shanghai and Beijing. The same thing with the progressive movement in the US. They want to change, like from Washington Street to something else. They don't like these the names that carries meaning of a history or has a historical meaning. They want to change history, so they changed the phonetic system and came up with pinyin. So all the spellings have changed, but Shanghai is pronounced exactly the same under the pinyin in the ping with the pinging system. So that's why it remains the same. All right, I've talked for quite a while. I hope you'll take a look at my sequel to the moon video. It's Chris's best work so far. I'm very proud of him. So take a look. All right, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much, and I'll see you this weekend. Bye.